Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys. My name's Eric Pate. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Racing with Eric Pate. I'm your host, Eric Pate. And welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Racing with Eric Pate, pre-Daytona, post-Clash. I would say we don't have quite a bit to talk about today. We got our 5 sections. Starting next week, we'll take you might see a section on here on the whiteboard right now, and you're wondering, why am I bringing it up in a racing podcast? Why am I bringing up a football game in a racing podcast? Let me explain that real quick. So, since we're in the first week of racing, we obviously don't have point standings right now. So instead of me just reading off the top 10 guys from last season again, or just saying 0, 0, 0, 0 10 times, I decided to include my thoughts on Super Bowl 60. Because why not? I've been asked on what my thoughts are. If you just want to watch my thoughts on Super Bowl 60, the video of it should have already been uploaded as I was recording this podcast. So I just figured I still want to have a 5th section of the video. So I figured, why not talk about Super Bowl 60 while we are at it? But anyway, the 5 topics of discussion: results from the Clash, top 10 picks, my top 10 picks to win each of the openers. That would change after Atlanta. Between Atlanta and Coda, I think we're going to. Between Atlanta, I'm pretty sure Coda we're going to. After Atlanta, I would look as I'm writing the Clash results on this whiteboard. The controversy of the week, which we have 2 of them. One shouldn't have even been on here. You guys, one I completely understand. The format to get into the Daytona 500. There's really 2 things you got to do to get into the Daytona 500, but I get more in depth with that later on this episode. And again, like I said, my thoughts on Super Bowl 60. Again, if you just want to watch my thoughts, I decided to merge the standalone video into this video. The standalone video, the Super Bowl 60 thoughts part has already been recorded. And like I said, if you want to watch the standalone, it's already on YouTube. So, let's get into it. Alright, so the results from the Clash. I kind of did not need to do that hard. Anyway, Ryan Preece was the race winner. William Byron was second. Third was Ryan Blaney. Fourth was Daniel Suarez. Fifth was Denny Hamlin. Sixth was Chase Briscoe. Seventh was Austin Dillon. Eighth, Chris Buescher. Ninth, Ross Chastain. 10th, Alex Bowman. 11th, Joey Logano. 12th, Josh Berry. 13th, Christopher Bell. 14th, Ty Gibbs. Carson Hocevar, 15th. 16th, Kyle Larson. 17th, Chase Elliott. 18th, Connor Zilic. 19th, Kyle Busch. 20th, Shane Van Gisbergen. And 21st, Austin Cindric. 23rd, Bubba Wallace. Those were the results of the Clash. Let's get into my top 10 picks for Daytona. By the way, speaking of Ryan Preece, we're going to be talking about him when we get into the controversy of the week, because one of the 2 controversies this week does involve Ryan Preece. And it's so yeah, let's get it. I'll be back here in just a few minutes. Alright, so these are my picks, and the actual race dates are under each of the 10 picks. So, for the Daytona 500, which is going to be ran on Sunday, I'm going to start off with that. I have, on my notes, I have O'Reilly and the trucks, with O'Reilly in the middle and trucks on the right looking at it. But I accidentally picked up my red marker first, and so I just went ahead and just did the trucks second. Anyway, let's get into the picks. I have Ryan Blaney winning the Daytona 500. Well, these are my top 10 favorites. My opinion, top 10 favorites to win the Daytona 500. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, who has previously won the Daytona 500. If I said previous one, that means they have won the Daytona 500 before. And it's only the next four, where Joey Logano is my second pick. My third pick, William Byron, who won the last two Daytona 500s. Austin Cindric, the 2022 winner of the race. Denny Hamlin, 2019, 2020, and 2016 winner of the Daytona 500. Brad Keselowski, yet to win this race. Bubba Wallace, two-time runner-up of the Daytona 500. Josh Berry, Eric Jones, Kyle Busch, best finish, runner-up 2018 to Denny Hamlin in the Daytona 500. Was really close to winning it in 2023. So, anyway, truck side. Real quick, the fresh from Florida 250. There's no previous truck winner at Daytona, so on this list. So luckily, you don't have to hear me say what year they won. Tanner Gray is my first pick. My second pick. Now, these two, luckily, the middle and the left side were made based off of power rankings and some betting websites I looked on. I did not place any bets, letting you guys know, because I know better. Wow, I know better when it's not the Super Bowl. Ignore that comment I just made. Tanner Gray, Christian Eckes, Carson Hocevar, Michael McDowell, Ricky Stenhouse. Michael McDowell and Ricky Stenhouse does both have a Daytona 500 win. McDowell in 2021, Ricky 2 years later in 23. Lane Riggs, Chandler Smith, Justin Haley, Caden Honeycutt, and Andre Perez de Laura, who quite a few times last year literally came close to his first career win, just like Rio Ruggiero, but Ruggiero finally got a win. That came at Talladega. And now, for the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. Now, if throughout the season you hear me say Xfinity, I really mean O'Reilly Auto Parts. Austin Hill, 2022, 2023, 2024 winner of the United Rentals 300. Jesse Love, last year's winner of this race. Anthony Alfredo. Justin Allgaier does have a win at Daytona and the summer race. I'm trying to remember who did win in 2025. Oh, Kligerman. No, Kligerman or Zelich. Sheldon Creed, who's still searching for that first career win. He's becoming the General Hamrick of his time. Taylor Gray, who finally got through with a first win last year. I think he's going to pull off a couple wins this year, but could it come at Daytona? We'll see. Sammy Smith, one of his two legit wins, came out of Super Speedway race, Talladega, being one, and then Rajah Caruth for the United Rentals 300. Now we're back in a sec with the controversies of the week. We got two of them. One of them regarding Grand Prix, the other one regarding weather. And I'll get into it after I write the topics on the whiteboard. Guys, want to see a time lapse? Yeah, why don't we have a time lapse in this video? Our two controversies of the week was some weather-related events which either postponed or stopped the clash for a minute, and the race winner's language. Now, let's talk about, I want to talk about the second one more, so let's go ahead and talk about actually the weather-related events which postponed the clash. So, for those of you that don't know, just a couple weeks ago, my area was hit with a massive snowstorm. There were still a few big snow patches where big piles were, but those are like basically almost gone. But then just about a week later, same thing happened in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where we're going to have the Busch Light Clash, or Cookout Clash, whatever the clash was called. So then, They got postponed to Wednesday. Honestly, I think it was okay we postponed it to Wednesday. Typically what NASCAR does is they postpone it to the next day, monitor the weather for that day, and if the day of the weather's still not promising, then we'll schedule it then for Tuesday. And then if it still doesn't look promising, we'll push it to Wednesday. So on, so on, so on. Latest I've seen a race being pushed was to Wednesday. And the second time I saw a race that was supposed to be scheduled on Sunday pushed to a Wednesday. The last time it was Texas of 2020. That one was just because there was just a lot of rain in Texas around that time. But we finally got going Wednesday night. I think the latest they would go is probably Wednesday anyway. Because on that day they were just like, okay, even if we have to race late into the night, we are racing today with the Texas race. That I just mentioned. But but reason why on Sunday it was pushed to Wednesday. Okay, so on Saturday it was pushed to Monday. From Sunday. On Saturday. They decided to go ahead and push it to Monday. Well, then they decided on Sunday that they were going to push it to Wednesday. Now, like I said, they will typically wait until Monday to determine on if we need to push it another day. But they just experienced a torrential snowfall. So they decided to push it to Wednesday, which I think was a smart move, give them plenty of time to get the track ready, get the sands cleared out. They said that there was a lot of race fans that helped out with shoveling snow from the seats and the racetrack. And I believe I heard that Zane Smith and Ricky Stenhouse helped out. A couple drivers helped out with the cleanup to get the track ready for the Clash. And then during the actual Clash itself, when we went to... Typically for the Clash, they stop at halfway. They will put out a red flag halfway. So, because the Clash pit stops are non-competitive. Honestly, instead of Super Bowl 60 now, I should have done a section on what's the difference between competitive and non-competitive pit stops. We're actually going to add a section next week. Next week's section, for next week, we'll talk about what's the difference between non-competitive and competitive pit stops. Brief overview, non-competitive means everybody has the same amount of time to make any changes necessary to their car, and you don't need to wear a full-on fire suit or anything. You just gotta just change the tires, take your time at changing the tires, take your time at fueling the car, take your time at making the adjustments. Basically, just take your time at making an adjustments the car needs. And usually we'll have a set amount of time. I believe it was 8 minutes that they had. But after the 8 minutes was up, it started sleeting at Winston-Salem. And once it started sleeting, we had to stop just a little bit longer. They put on the wet weather tires, which when we go to Coda, when we're between Atlanta and Coda, I would explain the difference between the wet weather tires and the tires they normally use. The wet weather tires, real quick, if you want to get a picture of your head of what does the... Here, I'll just draw it out real quick for you on the whiteboard, but in a couple weeks, I will have a couple blown up pictures hanging up on my whiteboard when we are talking about the difference. So, let's do blue. So the pink color. Now I'm about to scribble in real quick. Okay. So imagine you're looking. This is a regular NASCAR tire. You're looking at it from the side. Okay, the area I just colored in. Those are called slicks. And that's what is used basically at all the ovals at every single racetrack, basically. And what I'm drawing in blue right now. If you want a better idea of what the wet weather tires in NASCAR looks like, just go look at the side of one of your tires. That's all I'm going to say. This is just like I know this is not a good drawing, but this is just a quick drawing of like what the tire looks like. Like, you can see it has some treads there. Like I said, it's not the best drawing. When we go to Coda in a couple weeks, when we talk about when I go more in depth in the difference, I actually have 2 pictures hanging up of the actual tires. The other controversy, as you can see, was Ryan Preece's language. I don't even understand how this is a controversy. First of all, the guy's boss was in the hospital for a good chunk of the off-season recovering from a broken leg while he was out, I think, skiing with his family. And Ryan Preece was given... 2 years ago, about a year and 3 months ago, around my 23rd birthday or so, I wasn't even sure if Ryan Preece was going to have a job. And Brad Keselowski took a chance on him. Last year was like first season jitters. And I felt like last year the best car of the 3-car stable at RFK, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, and Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece was the best car. And he proved it on Sunday why he was that way. So, but, during his Victory Lane interview, I would say he did need to watch his language because he's on national television. I'm going to get the Salver Markers colors. I am going to mute here in just a minute. Anyway, what was I going to say before I got sidetracked? Make sure that this still has stuff in it. Okay, cool. But there was, why I say this was a controversy was what somebody was tweeting to Ryan Preece, Brad Keselowski, to NASCAR, to Brad Keselowski, to Kroger's, basically to everyone who was cheering on Ryan Preece. Somebody was tweeting that Ryan Preece should have watched his language. Yeah, he's on national television. Sure, he should have watched his language. I would agree. I'm pretty sure the other night when I was watching the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure I heard a couple Seahawks drop a couple F-bombs. Seahawks players dropping the F-bombs after winning the Super Bowl. Just letting you know, I probably dropped a couple while watching the Super Bowl. And I'm trying to work on the language. But I have an idea. I'll be back in a sec. We're going to take a listen to his interview. Okay, so I was trying to find a good one to where like we could actually hear language, but apparently it's been censored. But when I was watching it live, it was not censored, and I do agree it was on national television, and you should watch your language on national television. But the guy literally just won his first race in a Cup car. Yes, it wasn't a point span race, but it still was his first race in a Cup car. I think he probably was not paying attention to what language he was using. I think that was the last thing on his mind. He had several other things on his mind. Like finally winning for Brad Keselowski. Like I said, he was going through a pretty serious injury. So, honestly, I don't even know why somebody said that you need to watch your language as children watch. I can guarantee you that probably every child who was watching the race the other night has heard worse at home. Anyway, let's get into the last section of discussion. Alright, so the format to get into the Daytona 500. It's basically the same for every race, but only taking the top 40 cars. But since more than 40 cars usually try to get into the Daytona 500, not almost every year I've watched, it's been this way. You need to be one of the 36 charters. If you are one of the 36 charters, you are guaranteed to be in the Daytona 500. If you're not one of the 36 guaranteed charters, you need to time your way in tomorrow night, Wednesday, and the highest odd and even position both gets in. So, if two guys the top two, like we'll say a open car qualifies 15th and 17th, the 17th car, and then we'll say the another open car qualifies 20th. The third open car qualifies 20th. The guy who qualified 17th is not guaranteed to be in the Daytona 500 because, like I just said, they take the highest even and odd car to be guaranteed into the Daytona 500. So the 15th qualifying position and the 15th guy are guaranteed to be in the Daytona 500, not 17th, because, like I said, they take the highest even and odd number car to get into the Daytona 500. If you do not time your way in, you will have to race the duels. Now, all 45 cars who have signed up to be in the Daytona 500 will participate in one of two duels. Duel 1 will be the cars who got the even number qualifying positions for the Daytona 500. Duel 2 will be Duel 1 will be the odd number cars of the Daytona 500. And Duel 2 will be the even number qualifying positions. So it's not the car numbers, it is whatever position they got for the Daytona 500. If the highest open car, the highest finishing open car for both races will get into the Daytona 500. Now, if the car who timed their way in Wednesday night, they changed it up this year. If the car who gets in Wednesday night based off of their qualifying time, they will give it to the second best open car from the duel. So it's not the second best qualifying time of the open cars. It is the second best from the duel. And then everybody else goes home. Wait a second. There's a 41st spot in the Daytona 500. But didn't I just say that there is normally 40 cars? Well, starting in 2025, I decided not to write this on the whiteboard because that's just going to be a lot of writing. NASCAR decided that, hey, they're going to invite world-class drivers to race into the Daytona 500 if they want. Jimmy Johnson has said, for the time being, he wants to at least race the Daytona 500 every year. So, he was given this year's Pro Invitation. He was given it, that's what they call it, the Pro Invitation. And he was giving it this year, and he can use that. Now, no matter what, regardless of how he gets into the Daytona 500, there's still going to be a 41 car field. So because Johnson is already guaranteed into the 500, so what they're going to do instead is they're still kind of do the 2 and 2, and Johnson cannot have one of the two. Now, if Johnson wants to try to improve his position for the 500, he will do a qualifying time. I think he's still determined to do a qualifying time, and then in his duel, he's planning on doing a start and park because he's already in the Daytona 500. And then our open cars this year are... I did not write it on there because I didn't have enough room. Chandler Smith, Justin Allgaier, J.J. Yaley, Anthony Alfredo, B.J. McLeod, Corey LaJoie, Corey Heim, and Casey Mears. Again, between the 8 names I just read, 9 if you want to count Jimmy Johnson, the 8 names I read are the guys who are actually going to have to race their way into the Daytona, or time their way into the Daytona 500. Like I said, Jimmy Johnson doesn't have to worry about that because he's already in. I think he's still going to do a qualifying time and then just start parking his duel. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. I should have written it. I should put it as a number 7 point. Positions 1 and 2 for the Daytona 500 are locked, meaning that is our Daytona 500 front row. Meaning whoever gets the top 2 highest qualifying positions will start 1 and 2 at the Daytona 500, regardless of result in duel. All right, now let's get into my thoughts on Super Bowl 60. All right, if you're watching from the podcast, welcome back. If you're watching from just a standalone video, what's going on, guys? Eric Pate here. So the reason why I included this in the podcast, if you're watching it in the podcast, I still wanted to have 5 subjects to discuss, and I just figured since I haven't shared my thoughts on Super Bowl 60, because everyone's asking what my thoughts are as a fan of one of the two teams that were in, the New England Patriots. I figured, why not include it in the podcast? Like I said, if you're watching from the podcast. But if you're watching from the standalone video, here are my thoughts. Okay, so first of all, for those of you that don't know, ever since I moved into this apartment, I've started a tradition to where I would react from the 2-minute warning on of the Super Bowl. Or 3 minutes left and on for the Super Bowl. Well, this year I decided not to do that because I want to show you guys I'm depressed. And I was depressed at the end of the Super Bowl because of the Patriots not able to hold off the Seattle Seahawks. Actually, they weren't even in striking distance when it came to scoring against them. They weren't even in striking distance. So they weren't even close. There was kind of no way they were going to win. And it looked obvious. And honestly, unlike 8 years ago, where I was upset when the Patriots lost the Super Bowl. I'm going to admit that. But 8 years ago, I was more than upset. When the game ended, I was mad. I was angry. Then again, I was also 16. And also, actually, the Patriots actually had the lead within the last 3 minutes of that game by 1, and Philadelphia scored twice on us. Versus this go around, we weren't even in striking distance of the Seattle Seahawks. It just looked like Seahawks was clearly better. We're going to talk about both sides of the ball real quick. Let's talk about the Seahawks side of the ball real quick. They had an awesome run game. They had a great quarterback. Honestly, what this season proved is a point that I have said before to a couple friends and my dad, is that sometimes these quarterbacks are good quarterbacks. They just need to go play for another team. Look at Matthew Stafford. He was playing for the Detroit Lions, which at the time the Detroit Lions were terrible. Terrible. And the Los Angeles Rams were pretty good. He got traded to the Rams. First season as a Ram, he wins the Super Bowl. Sam Darnold, he played for about 4 or 5 really shitty teams. Sorry for my mouth. The Jets. Well, maybe 3. The Jets, the Panthers, and the Vikings. I swear he played for one more before he played for Seattle. Let me check that. Okay, I'm going to take back what I said. 3 of the 4 teams he was on previously. The Panthers, Jets, and Vikings. He was pretty darn... He was on those 3 crappy teams. There was one year he was on San Francisco. Actually, the one year in San Francisco, the one year he was on San Francisco went to the Super Bowl and should have won. They literally had it in the bag. All they had to do was, I think, block a field goal, and they would have won the Super Bowl. But now he's playing for the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seattle Seahawks were on fucking fire all year long and made it to the Super Bowl. And don't get me wrong, I think the 3 best teams in the NFC this year were actually the 3 NFC West teams that made the playoffs. The Rams, Seahawks, and 49ers. In my opinion, those 3 teams were the 3 best teams. Maybe as Chicago Bears. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, the the other three NFC teams that made the playoffs, Philadelphia. Actually, Philadelphia and Green Bay, they were also pretty darn good. But the one team that made the playoffs, I would say that didn't quite deserve it, was actually the Carolina Panthers, who I believe lost to LA. I couldn't remember, but this, with everything on the Seattle side of the ball, it just felt like that's proved my point more of sometimes good players are just playing for the wrong team. Now let's talk about New England side of the ball. Literally first 3 quarters, I was asking myself constantly what they were doing. What they were doing. What the defense was doing. No, not defense. Offense was doing. The defense, I'm also going to put some of the blame on. But it was mainly the offense. Actually, more or less, I want to point out the offensive line. I mean, your job is to protect the quarterback, not cause him to get sacked 7 times. And because of that, last year the record was broken for the longest time that the other team has not scored in the Super Bowl. That record got broken this year. Last year it was like 3 minutes, 30 seconds left in the third quarter when Kansas City finally scored against Philadelphia. And that was after Philadelphia started benching their starters. At that point in the game, you're winning like 34-0, I think the score was when they finally started scoring. When Kansas City finally started scoring last year, I believe the score was that. But at that point, it was just they just went ahead and started. Philadelphia just started resting their starters. But a year later, that record gets broken. New England didn't get on the board until I think within the final 13 minutes of the game, and it was just over from that. And then once Drake May threw, was it a pick 6 that he threw, or was it a strip sack? And the player who sacked him had the ball and ran it to the house. That basically ended the game. I ended up watching all but the last half of the second quarter because I was just getting frustrated. And then when I got home, I just turned the game back on. Fell asleep to it. I'm just kidding. I don't think I did. But anyway, just come on. I was frustrated with the TV. I was getting frustrated with the Patriots. They shot themselves in the foot in this one. So, alright guys. Like, subscribe, comment, favorite. Be nice, cool, be awesome. I'm Eric Pate, don't I hate. See you guys later. If you're watching from the podcast, check your flags in the air.